Hey, what's going on? If this your first time seeing my face, I go by Lion December. And now with that out of the way, I'm coming at you with a video about Indonesia tripping about the Straw Hats pirate flag. It's honestly like crazy to think about, but it's a sensitive world we living in, but I'm interested to hear why they're banning it from Indonesia. So let's go ahead. We got King of Lightning breaking it down. So let's see what they got to say.
This is nuts because the One Piece flag, the Straw Hat Jolly Roger, is trending in Indonesia right now. And it's used as a symbol for freedom and liberation.
Where is Indonesia? Hold on, I don't want to be ignorant while I watch this video. I believe Indonesia location in Asia. That's crazy. How far is Indonesia from Japan? Okay, they're not that far from each other. So in Indonesia, they're banning the straw hat flag when they're not that far from Japan. So you would think that it's welcome and that they like One Piece, but
Against the current supposed tyranny of the
oh
current
my gosh.
president and the government of Indonesia. And it's to the point now where they actually may ban the One Piece flag, the Jolly Roger, the Straw Jolly Roger, in Indonesia or anything that
Why
relates to
though?
One Piece as terrorism. And this is all happening
Terrorism over an animated series? Oh, you got to break it down for me.
before the Indonesian Independence Day, which is on August 17th. So here we go, because this caught my attention, and I'm flabbergasted right here. Here's why One Piece anime
That's right around the corner too. We're in August right now.
flag is being pegged a threat in Indonesia. Citizens have been raising the One Piece anime flag from the popular anime along Indonesia's national flag ahead of the country's 80th Independence Day. Indonesian citizens caught hosting the iconic One Piece anime flag ahead of 80th Independence Day. A black flag citizens are raising, portraying the Jolly Roger, a skull and crossbones symbol from a popular Japanese anime One Piece. In several videos that went viral, the flags were seen hoisted beside the Indonesian red and white flag, which raised concerns that it could mark a sign of defiance against the government. The Jolly Roger the Tribe Pirates.
Okay. I get what they're saying, but I believe they're taking it a bit too serious. So he's saying on TikTok, it went viral. Somebody had a Jolly Roger of the Straw Hat flag next to an Indonesia flag, and that is why they find it as a threat or related to terrorism. So I give you a great example. I work for this company and I was making videos on TikTok, and for the most part, whenever I was on my lunch, I did take my uniform off when I made my video. Then I ended up making a video with the uniform on, being a little lazy, and I come in one day and I guess somebody at the job was on my TikTok, and they basically informed somebody else, and that person talked to me and was like, hey, if do you be on social media? And I was like, yeah. He was like, well, just in case, just make sure if you're making any videos that you take the uniform off or don't have uniform on, because if you're making content on something, we don't want it related to our company. And at first I was flabbergasted, like who the hell, and I end up catching who it was. But I just kind of keep it neutral. And then same situation where obviously One Piece is about pirates, which is piracy, which is, I can see the correlation to terrorism. They don't want that represented with them. I see it. I see the point.
Fictional group from One Piece symbolizes freedom, friendship, and resistance to oppression in the anime. I'm gonna dive deeper into that later on, but give me a second. For those who don't follow One Piece, you might wonder what the meaning is behind the Strat Skull flag. This flag is not just a symbol of Pirate Monkey D. Luffy, but it can be interpreted as a symbol of resistance against the government, an ex-user noted. The One Piece flag is not specific enough. It is the flag of the Striped Pirates. If it's a symbol of open resistance against the government, the world government in One Piece universe, then the Whitebeard pirate flag would be more appropriate, said another user. And you guys should see this montage posted by Action A Comics, where you see a lot of folks that have the One Piece Jolly Roger. One person even has a small Whitebeard Jolly Roger. Some are Indonesian, some of them are not Indonesian. It's kind of confusing there. So I'm not too sure how accurate this is per se. But this is something that is currently trending right now, and it is pretty shocking to see this play out. Later on in the article, they say this: many online users initially thought that the act of flying...
And if we're being real, if anything, if they want to interpret it as something other, or how do I say this? You can interpret the flag more related to freedom than piracy, because if you know what loopers, if they took the time to learn about One Piece and knew the lore, and if they knew Luffy's flag, yes, it is a pirate flag, but it more represents freedom. So I just think that they didn't take the time to understand the message. But yeah, this is huge. If they're really gonna
non-national
ban
flags in Indonesia is illegal. However, Indonesian law does not explicitly ban the display of organizational or cultural symbols on private property, but it does require the Indonesian flag to be given the highest position of honor when flown alongside others. At least that was up until we had further news from the Human Rights Minister of Indonesia that apparently said, and we have another article here, and I quote, "The government reserves the right to ban the Straw Hat Pirates flag from the Japanese series One Piece from being flown during Indonesia's 80th Independence Day anniversary." So it seems to be on the 17th specifically, where he said that he could possibly ban that flag. And I continue. In his written remarks on Sunday...
Okay, so they're just banning it for a day? Okay, I feel like that's a little bit less, serious. If people could just hold off on that one day and then, go back to sporting that Straw Hat Jolly Roger. Straw Hat Jolly Roger. Oh, man. Hey, look, if you made it this far, like the video, man. Leave a comment, too, what you think about this situation, because this is crazy still.
The minister explained that prohibiting the flag is an important step to protect national symbols and demonstrate respect for the country. His statement came in response to a recent online trend where Indonesian netizens have been sharing photos and videos of the fictional flag flying on homes, vehicles, and in public spaces as the anniversary approaches. So this is radical news to me, because we're mostly One Piece fans on this channel, and obviously one of the core tenets of the story of One Piece is freedom, and it's one of many core tenets of the series. Things like,
I was gonna cuss, but I quite literally said that. I get that, Straw Hats are pirates, but if you know Luffy, if you took the time to watch One Piece, which the people in Indonesia, especially the government, they're not gonna watch One Piece or read it. I get that. And that's me just being self-aware of the situation. But if they did take the time and see why people are hoisting this flag throughout their country, it represents freedom. It's not that, it's a no-brainer. If you have common sense and have knowledge on One Piece, it means freedom. So you wouldn't make it a big deal of people hoisting around in Indonesia. But I get it. The government in Indonesia is not going to be taking their time to watch One Piece.
friendship and nakama, the identity of family, what that really means for an individual and or groups. Obviously, a core theme of the Stray Crew of dreams. Another core theme is self-acceptance of who you are as an individual, and how this, and despite flaws, you will find people in your life that will support you and be behind you if you make the effort and find opportunities. So, like, there are a lot of core tenets and themes about One Piece that do hit the heart, and I can see why Indonesians, a lot of them, are gravitating towards that flag. And no cap, it's insane realizing that One Piece is such a global phenomenon that you can have an Indonesian government that is trying to ban or could ban the One Piece flag. At the same time, you have, let's say, the French president, Emmanuel Macron. He's a big fan of the One Piece story. So for better or for worse, governments and folks in power involved in the One Piece story like this, it's mind-blowing when you realize the influence of this series. What I don't like, what I think is pretty off, is a Stray flag and really Luffy as a character being viewed as terrorist, or Luffy himself as a terrorist.
One second.
That to me, I think is absolutely insane. And obviously, folks who believe that have lost the plot. They're just full-blown retards. It makes no sense to say that Monkey D. Luffy is a terrorist or his crew are terrorists.
Yeah, it is a bunch of malarkey. At the same time, I get it though. And King, if you ever stumble across one of my videos or this video to be particular, they are pirates. And the act of piracy is a form of terrorism. And without going into the definition, that just makes sense to me. So I get why they kind of got their panties in a bunch. But like Cole said, if you really know, you know.
When there's a literal organization in the One Piece world, the Revolutionary Army, and are actively trying to take down the entire established world order. Whether it's the attacking and the bombing of marine vessels that carrying supplies, or let's say even the gondolas of the Holy Land, or usurping entire kingdoms' governments through revolts, attacks, and so on and so forth, they would be the closest ones to the definition of what a terrorist would be. And I'm not talking about their justifications, because obviously the established order in the world of One Piece is very messed up. And they don't target non-combatants at large. For the most part, they focus people in power, but you do have non-combatant nobles and royalty. There's a good chance that many non-combatant nobles and royals were forced into prison and probably killed during the Eight Kingdom Revolt. So again,
see, that's my thing too, is like One Piece is really political. So there's a lot of core messages that can be misinterpreted.
It's not one-to-one terrorism, but among the groups that we see in the story so far, they would probably fit the bill the best. And what folks kind of forget when they do things like label Luffy and his crew as terrorists is that they tend to forget.
even that act right there with Luffy having Usopp shoot down the world government flag, that's an act of terrorism. That is like them sending a warning to the government, like, this is war.
Luffy's objectives when he goes from place to place to place. Just how if someone is killed, it matters a lot.
I'm gonna look up the definition of terrorism.
Were they killed by someone because that person hated them and wanted revenge against them for X, Y, and Z reason, or is it because that person was attacked and then in self-defense they killed that person? Someone did die, but the reasons why they died, the motive, are two completely different universes, and everyone knows.
Definitely two completely different motives. Terrorism is the use of violence and intimidation, often against civilians and to achieve political aims. Not necessarily like in that scene where Luffy had Usopp or Soga King shoot down the world government flag. Was it to achieve political aim? They were trying to save their friend. But it is an act of violence and intimidation. Not intimidation, no, not intimidation, but an act of violence, or, letting them know that, hey, we're ready to go to war over Robin. So that does fall under an act of terrorism. So I get where the Indonesia people are coming from, but if they dig a little deeper and they learn what Luffy represents and what he was trying to achieve is freedom.
Knows that it's almost
and representing his friends.
When you think about all the chaos that Luffy sowed in Thailand, in Big Mom's territory, even destroying the tyrant Big Mom's wedding, is that a terrorist act by Luffy? No, because his aim wasn't to terrorize all of Thailand. His aim wasn't to try and usurp Big Mom's control over a part of the new world. His aim was to save his friend Sanji.
See, exactly. He kind of broke it down the same way I was talking about Annie's Lobby. He wasn't trying to topple the world government, and he wasn't trying to, fight against them for no reason or to terrorize them. He was only doing it to rescue his friends. So that's me, going over the same sentiment again. The Indonesia people didn't dig deep enough. They are not looking into it deeper and understanding these points in these certain arcs. They're just going off of surface level understanding, if that makes sense, or surface level knowledge. My bad, that's a better way to put it.
That was it. cut and dry. And the same thing goes for Robin. In Enies Lobby, when Luffy tells Usopp to shoot that flag, he's telling him in the process of trying to save Robin. The world government, the overarching opposition force of the story, was
he's breaking it down just like I did.
Preventing Luffy from getting to Robin. In the iconic lineup of CP9 versus the Straw Hats, he asks Robin, what do you want to do? If Robin pulls an Akira and says, leave me alone, then the arc plays out differently. But Robin has that line, I want to live Ikitai, and then the Straw Hats make their play.
And that sealed the deal. Luffy's like, I bet that's what I'm gonna do. So therefore, he was willing to go to any length to save his friend, but he's not doing it to terrorize the world government. He's only doing it to save a friend because she wants freedom. She wants to live. She doesn't want to die because she is the last people of her country, which the world government technically is carrying out an act of terrorism. Because people were trying to learn the hidden knowledge of the world, they destroyed their island. That is an act of terrorism, because that is a political aim, because they're trying to learn maybe political values or understand more about the world government and what they were doing, or more about their country and more about other countries. They decided to burn them down, and she was the sole survivor, so she has a lot of that knowledge. And they were trying to take her, either I think they were trying to take her past the wall of justice and take her to prison, or kill her. Uno reverse. If you know, you know. I feel like I'm chatting too much.
Same old phone? Nah. Upgrade to the new Galaxy Z Fold
He's
7.
ass, man. He's ass.
Get auto tech training at Universal Technical Institute and become
skip
career ready
button.
in less than a year.
But the objective of Monkey D. Luffy is very simple: to get Robin back. And then you may say, well, hold on now. Usopp did shoot the world government flag, therefore that's a sign of terrorism. But why
yes.
did they do that in the first place? They did it not because they wanted to overthrow the government and they were going to engage in even attacking civilians under the government's control. No, they did it as a message that they would protect their friend no matter what. Obviously, the Straw Hats are criminals, but they're not terrorists.
Yes.
Because the intent matters so much.
That's why it's like, if you haven't read the story and you're looking at it surface level, you can misinterpret some of these messages and some of these scenes. So it's a very slippery slope. Like ASAP Rocky said in Dope, it's a very slippery slope, man.
Doing what they're doing. Luffy, more often than not, doesn't have, if ever at all, these objectives of destabilizing an entire region, deliberately attacking civilian populaces, or even what the Rev does, which is attack government facilities of the overarching world government and even smaller nations with the deliberate intent of changing the established power in those nations, and again, for the entire world. Matter of fact, even we never see Luffy even attack marine vessels or supplies that go to the world government in the Holy Land. That's never happened once in the entire story of One Piece. In reality, a lot of what he does, whether it was Skypiea, whether it was Wano Country, whether it was, again, Thailand and Whole Cake Island, whether it was Dressrosa, a lot of what he does, and most of the crew does, in correspondence to their captain's will, is very simple, and it is far from terrorism. Saving a friend, getting someone's belly full of food, finding out more clues of where the One Piece treasure is located. Luffy's intent and his crew's intent on why they do what they do is so far from the standard definition of what terrorists seek to do and actually do in the real world. But One Piece is a very long series, ever since 1990.
Yeah, because Luffy, with all of these with everything that Cole just said, none of it was malicious. It wasn't just to, like, say, Wano. It wasn't just to overtake Wano's, or no. It wasn't just to overtake Kaido and Onigashima. It was to help Tama and the land of Wano not only get their country back, but to help them, have clean food again. And then Dressrosa, it was not to send a message to Doflamingo and take his rulership down and take over as the new king. It was simply to give back the country of Dressrosa to the proper king, Rebecca's father. I forget his name off the top of my head. And just arc after arc after arc, this is the case. So yes, Cole is right.
97 when it was first dropped. Over the years, over the decades, many interpretations on what is not. There was going to ebb and flow over the course of time. So even though it is very powerful to see a lot of Indonesians rep the One Piece flag strong, as far as I understand, their president was at least a supposed war criminal, and there is a lot of censorship that goes on in the country.
That's crazy.
As an American, I am not familiar at all with Indonesian
War criminal is
politics.
crazy.
But I'm a One Piece dude, One Piece sage, a One Piece savant. With the little that I know so far about what's going on,
that he is. But with that being said, that's going to be the end of this video. Hey, look, shout out to the people in Indonesia that are repping that flag and that do have the knowledge of One Piece, because they know. So shout out to those people. I think it's bogus that maybe whether it be the president or, you know, the government of Indonesia is trying to ban it. Hopefully it is just for that one day. But I wish they would take a little bit more time or be more knowledgeable on the series before just banning it and trying to make it seem like it is an act of terrorism, because it is not. We already broke it down, me and Cole. But yeah, if you like what I had to say, make sure you like video, subscribe, comment, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that what Luffy was doing in the series is an act of terrorism, or is it more about freedom and peace? With that being said, I'm out. Peace.